Very cool.
Yes.
Well, thank you so
Very
much.
Bravo. So let's quickly pick a title, and then I'll just let you know about our rollout schedule, and you can go prepare for the con tomorrow.
No, I actually have to go back and do day jobby things for a while.
Oh, sorry. I'll hurry through these. All right.
It's all right. I was going to work through lunch anyway. It's fine.
Okay. All right. As long as
We do this a lot. Lots of juggling.
Right.
There's a reason that everything is so manic, and it's mostly because my schedule is just packed all the time.
That's fair.
So,
all right. The titles, and I have one that I love, but we'll see what you pick because this is your choice, not mine. Misery Makes Me Telekinetic. No More Breaking Things with My Mind. You Need to Look at This Right Now. To Whatever Your Next Step Is. Thing After Thing After Thing. Aged Like a Fine Wine, as it were. There's a Fair Amount of Juggling, or Like a Fictional Hug.
There's a Fair Amount of Juggling is accurate.
Got it.
And not everything is like a fictional hug.
That's also fair. All right. Let me quickly record that. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 41. There's a Fair Amount of Juggling. This is Written on the Edge. I'm Vance Bastian here with my co-host, S.A. Baz Collins.
Howdy.
And we're really glad you're here with us. Our guest today is Catherine Lundoff. Catherine is a transplanted Brooklynite who lives in Minneapolis with her wife, Jana, an amazingly talented book artist, and the two cats that own them. When not writing, she works as a professional computer geek. In former lives, Catherine owned a feminist bookstore, Grassroots Books in Iowa City, and has lived in Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Mexico. She was once a professional archaeologist, and before that worked at a bar in St. Louis that laid claim to having the world's largest collection of Elvis memorabilia outside of Memphis. Catherine, I want to hear more about that in a second. Catherine started writing professionally in '96 while in law school. She sold the first story she ever wrote and quit law school a week later and has not looked back since. In addition to writing and editing, Catherine is also the publisher at Queen of Swords Press. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Our pleasure. So to introduce Queen of Swords Press to folks, it's an independent small press based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, specializing in swashbuckling tales with female protags, people from wide-ranging cultural and racial backgrounds, having adventures in outer space, LGBT and or Q characters engaged in magic and swordplay, and historically flavored stories that reflect diverse casts of characters doing interesting things. I love that as a description for your press. Way to cover the gamut. Bravo.
Right.
So I know you went into the bit about this in your bio, but where did the fire to actually start writing come while you were at law school?
Oh, utter misery. I'd been running my own bookstore before then, and I'd had to close up. The whole 9 months of walking pneumonia and so forth were, I was out of money, I was out of health. So I needed something to do while my girlfriend, now wife, was finishing up her program. And so I did what most other people do under those circumstances, which is I go back to school because it's Iowa City and it's what you do.
Right.
So I applied to law school and I got in and I spent an accelerated semester in law school. And we learned that misery makes me telekinetic. I would walk into the kitchen and things would slide off the countertop and break. So I spent a couple of months breaking things with my mind. And in the middle of that, my partner suggested that I try my hand at doing some writing and seeing if I could send it out and sell it. And the original idea was that I was going to write a book about feminist bookstores. And that morphed into I would try writing some fiction, which I'd never done before. And so I literally sent a story out, month or two later, acceptance came back. The cover of the magazine ended up being by Alicia Austin, who's this fabulous, fabulous lesbian fantasy artist who does this gorgeous, gorgeous work. And I looked at that cover and I looked at whatever my law school semester lineup was and said, no, no more breaking things with my mind. And so that was that. So
there you go. There you go.
So the idea for the press came from many years of being traditionally published by other people and having some exciting learning experiences along the way, and looking at those learning experiences and saying, I cannot possibly be more dysfunctional than some of the people I've been dealing with. I can do better than this. So spend a couple of years, prepping and figuring stuff out and getting stuff set up. And Queen of Swords Press launched in 2017.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk about it. I mean, I know we covered a bit of the genres in the bio. What's coming up this season? What are you releasing?
Okay, I just in August released Rem Wigmore's amazing solar punk novel, Fox Hunt. It is so good that not only did it get a starred review in Publishers Weekly when it came out, but last week an article in Tor.com picked it as one of the 5 essential solar punk reads right now.
Nice.
And it's all, the whole cast is queer characters. The protagonist is a bi trans woman. The author is also bi and trans. And it's just, it's beautifully written. The characters are extremely memorable. Just love it to pieces. I tell no one, but I have the sequel in my inbox and I need to read it.
Yes. I love it when you drop spoilers. Yay.
Plus, I love that it's supposed to be secret, and yet we put it on the show.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Hey, internet, guess what we learned?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Top secret news.
Right.
And then November, I'm putting out Jenny Goloboy, who's a local literary agent, sent me her first science fiction novel last year. And I've been wanting to do a line of science fiction, fantasy, and horror by authors in the Northern Midwest, the Upper Midwest,
right?
Northland Speculations, as we're currently calling it. And
cool.
They're not necessarily queer focused. They're, there's a little more variety. That one's going to be more, geographic range. So I do a ton of local lit festivals and so forth. And I want to be able to bring stuff out and go, local author. So Jenny's book is called Obviously Aliens, and it's this hilarious road trip with body switches and talking corgis from another planet, and an artist who designs doges of the month, which are the Shiba Inu things.
Yep.
And with so many aliens, lots of aliens. One of the protagonists is a gay man who's a recovering hired assassin and thief who's trying to forge a new way forward with his boyfriend who's getting body switched with aliens, and it's just nuts. It's just a lot of fun, and so that'll be out in November. And we're aiming to make the deadline for the Minnesota Book Awards, so it has to be out by the first of the month.
Nice.
So we're so close. We're so close.
That's awesome.
And then for next year, we're looking at a couple of different things. I'm hoping to crowdfund an anthology. We've already done one anthology, so this would be our second. The aforementioned double top secret book, and then some other things that are kicking around where I need to actually talk to the authors before talking about their stuff.
That's fair. No, totally fair. We respect contracts like you would not believe.
Yes. We get it.
All right. So how do you approach the publishing process? Like, I mean, I've worked in a small publishing house, but it was an established nonfiction house. So I want to, and the joy in your voice tells me this is going to be fun. How do you approach it when you first get a submission and you're kind of like, that might be a good one?
Okay. I mean, we're small enough that what I tell people when they send stuff in is that it's got to be a thing that I'm very excited about because I do the majority of our marketing. We're really fortunate this year. We have our very first university intern. And so she's taken over doing a lot of the visual stuff because she really likes Canva. And I'm like, stay forever. What do you mean you have to go get a job? Anyway. So that's been super helpful. We started originally, the first author who wasn't me, because the first year was my backlist. The second year, I published a book by Alex Axe, who's a terrific trans author from Colorado. And Alex had done these amazingly great steampunk stories. They're set in an alternate Colorado. They're queer. They're kind of post-apocalyptic, only steampunk. They're
cool.
just terrific stories. And I had read them years ago when they got released by a different press. And my memory of it is that the press released those stories in an omnibus and then went out of business 2 weeks later. And so I think I was like one of 5 people who wasn't a blood relation who'd actually read the original stories.
Oh.
So we were sitting around at Worldcon and I'm like, hey, I'm going to start a publishing company. You should send me those. So, time passes and Alex popped up and said, hi. So that was how it began. So we did the first 2 collections of Alex's steampunk stories, which is Murder on the Titania and Wireless. That's where those are collected. And after that, we did Scourge of the Seas of Time and Space, which is a fantastical pirate story, anthology rather, that includes, gay pirates, straight pirates, bi pirates, all kinds of pirates. More importantly, and germane to the conversation about the press, it includes a story about a dapper lesbian capybara pirate named Sinrak.
Nice.
So I read the Sinrak story. I went out, I delved around. Author's name is AJ Fitzwater. AJ's based in New Zealand.
Mhm.
Discovered another couple of stories out there about Sinrak and went back to AJ and said, hey, I want to do this line of minis, which are like about half the size of a standard trade paperback. They're about 40,000 words. So novella length, collected linked short stories, all set in the same world with the same characters. So we put out a couple of those. One is a collection of my horror and dark fantasy, and the second one is Sinrak. So AJ allowed, as they could probably write some more dapper lesbian capybara pirate stories. And so they did.
Nice.
And we got them all collected. And so they were going out last year. And, meanwhile, we'd had submissions open and some things had come in. And it one of the things that I've learned over this process is that it is very possible for me to really like a story and yet know it is not for us.
Mhm.
And I won't take anything if we can't tap into a readership for it, because that wastes everybody's time.
Right.
So unless I've got some kind of hook, it's kind of like, I'm about to send one of those letters later on today. It's like, this is really good. You should publish it someplace, but it's not going to be us.
Yeah.
So we've had a few of those. So what happened last year was, it was 2020, and it was just like unbelievable disaster on every conceivable level. Just everything went wrong. So we had scheduled Sinrak to come out in April. And the plan was that I was going to put out my second menopausal werewolves novel, Blood Moon, in October. Yeah, this is one of my things.
I love how she just slips those in, as if no one will notice.
Subtle. And so it was 2020. So, okay, here's how the year went. So in March, my mom died, which was expected, but still a thing. I got into a car accident, lockdown started. We were putting out AJ's book at the first week in April. AJ had it scheduled in a tour in the US and was doing stop-offs in LA and Madison and the East Coast. Canceled everything. The book was still coming out. So we did the book.
Sure.
And so we shuffled everything online. And so it was just like this mad scramble to get all the pieces together. And I live in Minneapolis. I live 4 blocks from George Floyd Square. So we hit the end of May and we were on fire. We were on fire a lot.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff happened, most of it not very good, gun battles, craziness, people without places to live all of a sudden, just bad stuff, lots of bad stuff.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of turmoil. We had no drugstores for a while because they were all shuttered, and we had like one lone supermarket still hanging in there, that kind of thing. so that was the summer, which oddly enough dented my ability to do much writing. However, went to Clarion, which is a prominent science fiction writing workshop, and is just a powerhouse. So between the two of us, we kept motoring along and pushing the book out in the world, and trying to deal with the fact that when stuff went online, if it was an event that was very dependent on being an in-person event, people just didn't go or didn't buy things or didn't participate. And that happened a lot. So like, for example, we did virtual Twin Cities Pride. Normally, Twin Cities Pride is one of the largest prides in North America now. It's huge.
I've been. It's amazing.
Online, crickets. And we all went through this. It wasn't just, it wasn't just me.
Wow.
But, we plugged along, and then we got into the fall, and then my day job situation got really dicey, and it was obvious I was not going to have my day job for much longer. So in the midst of all of that, I went back to school and got a project management certification, all of which put the kibosh on putting the novel out. I did finish the novel. It just wasn't ready to be out in the world.
Right.
So,
well, celebrate the small victories,
Right. So we shifted that to March. So fast forward to this year, we're getting more established. We're getting more recognized. Happy note for Sinrak the Dapper. It just won a Sir Julius Vogel Award, which is it's New Zealand's Hugo, basically, for best collection, which is super cool. And it might be the first time that a queer book has won. It is very certainly the first time that a dapper lesbian capybara pirate book has won.
Right? And it's about time.
AJ also, that's what I thought too. AJ also won for best novella. And they were up for best fan writer, but our web designer, who's also based in New Zealand, won for that one.
Wow.
So it all worked out. So then we got into, some of the things that, came in last year. And when Fox Hunt came in, I do have a part-time assistant, and my assistant happened to be the one who read it when it first came in, and immediately texted me and went, "Hey, you need to look at this right now. I'm pretty sure this is the one." And, kudos to Alexa's judgment. It was indeed the one. Jenny's book also came in, fell madly in love with that. Got us sorted other things. There's some things that, I kicked back to authors and said, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. If you feel like you want to work on this going forward, send it back to me after you take a look at the stuff. So there's some things floating around in the ether like that. So we're delightfully spontaneous, and we spend a lot of time with hey, let's go do a book. Grandpa's got a barn. That's kind of what it feels like some days. Oh, I forgot about the construction project. The other thing that happened last year in April was that the contractors I've been trying to get in touch with for a year and a half to redo our attic so it wasn't leaking heat like a sieve during the winter, called up and said, "If you don't have us in right now, you're waiting for at least 2 years." I went, okay. So then we had a construction project going on in the beginning of lockdown with all this stuff. So everybody's running in and out of the house with masks, and nobody knows what the protocols are. And we're still at that stage where people are like, "If you touch a doorknob, will you get it?" So we're spritzing the doorknobs down, spraying each other down.
Right. Stuff. Oh, those were crazy days.
2020. Yeah, it rocked.
I would just like to congratulate you on actually telling authors what you looked for that you didn't see. That's huge. That's feedback that a lot of authors don't get from publishing houses.
Right. And they don't often get it from their beta readers either.
True.
A lot of them are so fan struck, they just are enthralled, and they will blow smoke up your backside, and not realizing that as an author, you want that connective feedback, so it is great that you at least tell them.
In all fairness, you don't always have time. So usually if I'm giving feedback, it's the things that, I saw some things about it that I really liked, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. So sometimes that's, this is a fascinating ending and a bold new direction that I would not have taken. I'm not sure you should either. There's that kind of stuff. Or this would be great if you trim about 30,000 words off it. Thanks.
Yep.
And, you know, and people don't want to hear that. And I understand that, but
Right.
it's like,
But the ones that
I'm not
do,
saying somebody won't take it. I'm just saying I won't.
right. Well, and the ones that do hear that though, and at least consider it, are the ones that are taking their career seriously.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the ones who are just, this is my baby, it's going to go out this way or never.
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room, and you kind of you touched on it earlier, the evolution of marketing. And I wanted to talk about this because I know so many authors think that, hey, I've got a publisher, they're going to go do everything. And that's not how the world works anymore, because that's not how fans work anymore.
Yep.
So are you okay talking about marketing, or is that like a taboo subject?
I love talking about marketing. I actually just wrote a piece about it for Dream Foundry.
Really?
I actually teach a class on it.
Okay, that's really cool. Is
that's
that
epically cool?
A class we should be telling our author listeners about so they can come check it out?
Sure, that would be delightful. I teach classes at the Rambo Academy, which is Kat Rambo's online writing school. So everything's virtual. She has a bunch of on-demand classes out there. She has a bunch of in-person, you know, Zoom classes out there. And I really recommend it if you're at a stage where you're looking to get to whatever your next step is, because she brings in, like, everyone she brings in has got a track record. You know, you have to be published, you have to know, you know, your stuff to be teaching with her, and she vets pretty carefully. So, you know, it's people like, you know, Ann Leckie and, you know, award-winning authors and people who work for, you know, large publishers doing marketing and that kind of stuff, and they're the ones teaching the classes on, you know, hand selling books, how to get better at that, you know, how to handle podcasts, you know, just it's a whole range of stuff.
Sure.
So it's everything from, you know, I'm teaching a class on writing Gothic fiction later on this month. I teach it once a year. It's called Crimson Peaks and Menacing Mansions. And, you know, it's about writing ghost stories. You know, so I, you know, basically ghost stories, haunted house stories, all of that good stuff. So I do that one about once a year. I teach book marketing. I teach a behind the scenes, what goes into publishing a book class. I teach a class on writing sex scenes because I used to write a lot of erotica back in the day. And what's my other class? I have 5 in rotation. And then I also teach for Springboard for the Arts, which is a local arts organization. And I just rolled off in August teaching at the Novel in Progress Book Camp, which is in Wisconsin. It's down in West Bend, and it's a week-long thing where you can either sign up for the retreat portion and take classes as you feel like it, or you can sign up for the book camp version, in which you take a lot of classes. And they have visiting artists, and they have a whole bunch of stuff going on. So, you know, when I was there, we had a gong show on query letters. How fast can you kick a panel of editors and an agent out of your query letter? Ooh. And if you could get through the first 2 paragraphs, you were winning.
Nice. Very nice.
And people never get to see that stuff. So they never get to see the immediate reaction of, no, that's why that stopped working for me right there. Line 3. You know?
And that's helpful.
Super. It is. Yeah. So back to marketing. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different components that go into successful marketing, and I don't come from a marketing background. A lot of my stuff is either I took workshops or it's self-taught. And a lot of the self-taught is watching what other people do. So yes, authors really do need to plan to be involved in marketing. I was always involved in my own marketing when I was published with by other publishers. And it's more successful. So, you know, for example, you know, just AJ lined up an incredible amount of stuff. So in the course of a year, I got AJ into several things. I got AJ into some events. We did stuff out on the, you know, we have a newsletter. We have a YouTube channel with readings from our authors, you know, so I did all of that kind of stuff and recommended them for things. But on their own, they got into the Sunday paper in Christchurch, New Zealand, did a feature. You know, the New Zealand's major art magazine did a feature. They're at every single one of the literary festivals, which, you know, if you're familiar with how most literary festivals treat speculative fiction authors, is kind of unusual. You know, and it's just been like, you know, thing after thing after thing. And I did some of it, but the rest of it, you know, AJ definitely did, because that was something they had access to. So, and then Rem is a newer author who hasn't been, out and about quite as much as the rest of us, aged like a fine wine, as it were. But everything that I have sent them saying, hey, talk to this podcast, see if they'd like to have you on. Here's this event. Do you want me to recommend you for this? I'm going to nominate the book for this award. Make sure you plug it. That kind of stuff. They're on a lot, and they're doing a lot of things with visuals, which is also really important right now. I have not yet ventured into book talk. I've got the intern dealing with that because I'm like, you're young, go look at this. So we're all still kind of looking at book talk and going, I don't know. But we are doing more stuff with Bookstagram. And the thing of it is that, the newer generation of readers coming up looks for a more interactive relationship with authors. So they want to follow you, they want to see what you're doing. They really want to look at things like your reaction when you unbox do an unboxing video of your books showing up. If you told me that 20 some odd years ago that anyone would care about this, I would have been utterly baffled. And now I'm like, we need to do an unboxing video.
Right? Well, that's just it. Everything has changed. Audiences have changed. Delivery has changed. How we approach looking for books has changed.
Yes.
It's a whole new world. You can't just be the author in the dark corner and
Yeah,
trench
I mean,
coat.
we've had queer teens on our show, and one of the things that surprised us was that they don't always like to read digitally. They like a physical copy, So,
Yeah.
And who would have thought, that generation actually likes the tangible feel of a book,
Right.
Yeah, I do, a fair number of tables at small prides, well, up until last year. I'm starting to do tables again at small prides. I was tabling up in St. Cloud, which is a, smaller city up in northern Minnesota. It tends to be pretty conservative. They have a really nice Pride celebration, however, and it's one of those, if we do not hang together, we shall most assuredly all hang separately kind of prides.
Right.
And so you've got the liberal religious, and you've got the leather folks, and you've got the furries, and you've got, PFLAG, and anybody who's vaguely left of center is like, Pride.
That's awesome.
And yeah, the number of young people that would come up to the table and go, oh, a book.
No, seriously, yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with, a young trans man who was newly out, who said, I've never seen myself in a science fiction book. What am I looking for? And I gave him a list, so that there's all, it's just that there's some things that I think that, especially if we live in bigger cities, we kind of get to take for granted in terms of what kind of access is out there, what's floating around and available to people. But yeah, I mean, I regularly sell books to young folks, and they're like,
yeah, no, seriously, yeah.
They walk off hugging them like small pets,
Or the baby that you knew would find a home.
Yeah.
That's really heartwarming.
I mean, it is. I mean, I sold a copy of Sinrak to, a delightful young person in a fursuit, in St. Cloud, and they just literally skipped off, big fuzzy paws. It was the most adorable thing.
I love that.
Because they'd found themselves on the page. I mean, how cool is that?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So to flip the marketing question, what should readers look for while they're searching for their next great read?
Well, reviews are always helpful. It's a really nice idea to sign up for publisher newsletters if you can, and actually read them once in a while. Just saying. Events, things that are going on. I mean, a lot of us, shifted so much stuff online. There's a ton of readings. We have, regular connections to, podcasts. Rem is going to be on Perfectly Queer next week, which is a West Coast reading series. I've been on it. I think AJ was on it. We've all been on the Queer Words podcast. There's a couple of other things that are, built around bringing queer authors to a new audience that are readily available.
Mhm.
Speaking of Jerry Wheeler, Jerry runs Out in Print Reviews, which is a great website. It's filled with really thoughtful reviews. Nathan Burgoyne does just some amazing short fiction reviews. There's a site called the Lesbrary, which is built around, it's run by somebody who does book lists and a newsletter for Book Riot, and who's also a librarian. And the Lesbrary is just reviews, interviews, book lists, reference links to books about queer women.
There you go.
So I mean, there's some really great resources out there. What gets kind of frustrating from the small publisher standpoint is that people go to like the one big publisher they like, and then they don't look past that.
Right.
I actually had to explain to somebody recently that no, Mercedes Lackey did not invent gay protagonists in fantasy. No, there was a lot of stuff before that.
Right,
some of it by actual gay authors.
Right.
Here's a list.
Nice.
So I've done a couple of historical survey articles that are currently posted out on Queer Sci-Fi and a couple of other places that actually are overviews decade by decade of LGBTQ plus, fantasy, science fiction, and horror. And on a personal note, I just received a writing grant for from the Ladies of Horror Fiction for doing a project on queer horror that I started a while back and never got to revisit. So that's like the winter project.
That's awesome.
Yay.
So yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to that.
All right. Any other thoughts on marketing or the next season of books you've got coming out before we flip over to our get to know you questions?
Oh, well, one thing I would like to ask. So do you have open submissions, or is there only a certain time that you're looking for submissions?
We
or
do
how
it
does
at a
that work
certain
for you?
time.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it's, we'll open up at some point next year. I'm not sure when. Some of it depends on, everybody else's timing. And one of the other things that I do is I'm one of the coordinators with Melissa Scott of an annual Pride Story Bundle. And we spend like a month pulling together authors and books and so forth and making all of, the publicity and so forth for that work. So I'm kind of like, and then May is gone. So there's a fair amount of juggling. And I hope we have another intern next summer, but I don't know that we will. I hope the intern is as good as the current one. So some of it is about staffing. People occasionally talk to me about slush reading, and that would speed things up a lot. And I think we'll eventually move in that direction. It's just I haven't had time to coordinate anything. So, but yeah, we will open it up. So it's best to, keep an eye on the website. It's usually summer, usually like after the story bundle goes out. So like this year, a lovely horror publisher loaned us their submittable portal because they're quarterly. So they're like, well, we have a couple of months we're not using it. We're already paying for it. Here you go. I'm like,
wow.
And
that's really cool.
Man, that sped things up so much. It was just like, oh, this is awesome. And things like submittable are kind of spendy, which is why we don't have one regularly. But they're grandfathered in, so they just pay annually, and they pay the old rate. So they're like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was really helpful. So the cooperation of one's peers is an amazing thing. And I love working with other small press publishers because they are just magnificent humans for the most part.
They get the struggle. They know of struggle,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is where we normally ask what's coming up next, but you did drop a few hints, like obviously Aliens coming out in November, right? That was the one?
Obviously, Elvis is coming out at the beginning of November.
Yep.
And then we're still finalizing timelines and so forth for next year, but I should have them soonish.
Any upcoming conventions where people can log on and watch you?
Well, next Saturday, Twin Cities Book Festival. Queen of
Nice.
Swords Press will have a table, and I will be part of the local author showcase, and that will be recorded.
Nice. So
We're
that's
not planning on
October.
recording our table unless it ends up on TikTok.
But that's October 15, 16.
That's the 15th.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's Saturday. Whatever Saturday is, whatever number Saturday is.
16th.
16th. Okay. Coming up this week in terms of things that people will be able to watch after the fact. I'm talking to a local book club on Zoom. I think that'll end up on YouTube.
Nice.
That's again about menopausal werewolves. On Wednesday, Rem is part of the reading for Perfectly Queer. And that definitely goes out onto YouTube, and that's on Facebook, so you can watch it there. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'm on a podcast called Writers Drinking Coffee, and that episode is supposed to drop in like sometime soon.
All right.
We recorded it last week, and I'm not sure what a couple of weeks means, because a couple of weeks to me can mean 2, can mean 4. So waiting to hear about that. So that'll be coming up. And then for, in November, we've got a whole bunch of things lined up. So like Jenny will be reading from Majors and Quinn bookstore. That'll be online. Majors and Quinn is local. Jenny will also be on John Scalzi's Big Idea, talking about obviously aliens. We're going to be doing a table for Geek Girl Con, which is online. That's a Seattle area convention that'll be around next month. And then there's a couple of other things, like, and part of it is that it's like people, say, hey, I'm going to do X, and then maybe X happens, or maybe X gets pushed out, or maybe it goes online or something. So sometimes things aren't quite as,
So,
but Twin Cities Book Festival is definitely happening.
Nice. So what social is the best for people to follow you for all these updates?
Facebook is pretty straightforward updates. Our newsletter is really the best, most comprehensive option, because that has pretty much everything with links for the month. If we know about it at the beginning of the month, then we do catch up the next month.
And folks sign up for that at queenofswordspress.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Queen of Swords Press Twitter at QOS Press is also a good place. I mostly post book news out there. If you want my ranting about local politics and so forth, then you can follow me personally on my feed. But if you'd just like to skip that part and just do the books, QOS Press is also our Instagram handle. And that's pretty much all pictures of tea and books and nature walks and our cats and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And the occasional unboxing video.
Right.
Perfect. All right. And we will put all of those links on your page on our site so people can find them.
Great. Thank you.
Any final words of wisdom?
Hang in there. Get out there. Go do new things. Enjoy. So,
Perfect.
thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
It has. Folks, this was Written on the Edge. The Rote Podcast is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to Catherine for being with us. Catherine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, head over to queenofswordspress.com, look through the offerings, pick the book that you want to be your big fictional hug, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
What's that? Closing time. Bum's Rush and Melody, dear.